So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of the RGM Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney. How you doing? You all right? And today we've got Jules from the Big Moon. Morning, mate.
Good morning.
Oh, thanks for joining us today. What an hour to be alive.
I know it's 8:30 in the morning, if anyone's wondering.
Well, that's our commitment to you, the listeners, to record these type of things when we both, because we're both busy people. You know what it's like, don't you? We try and fit things in, and it's our commitment to you, the listeners, to share new stories on this podcast. So thanks for joining us today, mate. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Where do we find you today then? Whereabouts? Where are you? Set the scene.
I am at home in London.
Oh, nice.
I'm sitting on my bed.
Yes.
I'm still wearing my dressing gown.
Yes.
Of course. That's about it, really.
That's about it. Fair enough.
I've got a full day of rehearsals today.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because you've got a lot coming up. I've had a little nosy on your website, and I've seen all the gigs that are coming up, and it all starts in May.
Yeah.
So I presume
it's busy summer.
So the rehearsals are all for festival season coming up then, I presume.
Yeah, well, we've got lots of festivals coming up, a couple of headline shows as well. Yeah. One in Leicester and one in London at the Roundhouse. Wow. Which is going to be our biggest headline show ever. So it's sort of, we're getting some exciting new staging and making it fancy, basically.
That must be a nice little development, you know, because we track the journey of a band a lot on RGM, and it's mainly bands just starting out, you know, just starting to get tour dates, getting big support names and that kind of stuff. But the next stage after that is like getting toys and stuff on stage, I presume.
Oh my God, yeah. It's I feel like I'm in such an incredibly lucky position. Yeah. Like a month ago, I drew a picture on a napkin of what I thought maybe the stage could look like. And then I sent it to someone in an email, and then they sent it to someone, and then they sent it to someone. And
they said,
then now someone's making it.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Can you give us are you allowed to say or give us a little hint of what it's going to be?
No, I want to keep it as a surprise.
Fair enough. Well, that's fair enough. Well, what I'd say then, because within the description of this podcast is a link to your website, and it's got all your dates on there. It's got all the festival dates. It's got your, tickets for Roundhouse and Leicester and all that kind of stuff on there for you too. So I'm intrigued to know what it's all about. But that's what you've got coming up. Let's go back a little bit and discuss the origin of the band a little bit, because I like to have a bit of a nosy about and that, if that's all right, Jules.
Yeah, sure. I'll see what I can remember.
Yeah, fair enough. Talk us through how you, what was the landscape like as a little Jules just growing up before you got into music?
I grew up in southeast London in a leafy suburb. I didn't start playing guitar till I was about 16. Yeah. But there was always a piano in my house. So I used to just plonk away on that quite a lot and sort of work out songs.
Nice.
Yeah. And then moved up to the big city when I was 18, as soon as I could, really. I didn't like it in the suburbs.
Was it a strange thing for you to do to school music? Like your friends and that kind of stuff? Were other people surrounded by music, or was it just like you, like an oddball musician, just starting to think about this piano in the corner of the room and, I might fancy a bit of guitar at some point?
The rest of my family also kind of had a bonk on the piano every now and then, but like,
okay.
I think I'm the only one who wanted to pursue it as like to perform it.
Yeah.
And to make a go of it. Like I felt, as a teenager, I was very like, I am gonna be in a band. Yes. I'm not going to university. And sort of moved up to London with all these ridiculous dreams, and ended up like working in pubs for about 8 years.
Oh, that's the kind of thing. I can remember making broken promises to my mum when I were in a band about, I'm going to get signed, I'm going to buy your house and that kind of stuff. It never happened because, it's graft, isn't it? Why do you think it it's happening for you guys.
I honestly think a lot of it is luck. Like the things that have happened in my life that have sort of unlocked doors have been lucky. Yeah, but I guess it's partly luck and partly, you know, whatever, who hears your music at that moment in time and what kind of music somebody who wants to invest their time in. Like, I guess whatever's cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I spent so long floundering around in random bands and trying different things, playing different instruments in different bands, and then when I started the Big Moon, you know, this is probably my fourth band, and I just sort of thought, all right, let's try this one for a while, and then the Big Moon was the one that took off. I just can't work out what the recipe for it is. It's just
what
kind
of
kept going.
What kind of luck did you feel you got? Like, give us an example of like getting a bit of luck. What's that look like?
Well, like, for example, my first job in music was I just had a phone call randomly from a man who was like, I've heard that you play guitar. This was when I was like 24 and I had like given up music. I had like renounced playing because I was so sick of playing and putting time in, spending my money on doing it. I was like, this isn't going anywhere. Never mind, let's give up. And I had gone to university at that point and I was doing a foundation year in art. So I was sort of halfway through this foundation year and I was like, I'm an artist now. I was really into it and hadn't played guitar for ages. And then, just had this random phone call and this guy knew someone who I'd recorded a demo with when I was like 19.
Oh, wow.
And they'd been looking for a guitarist and this guy had recommended me to go and play with someone. And it was a paying gig. So they were like, do you want to come and we're going to tour Europe and we'll give you £100 for every show? And I was like, what? And I was obviously like, dropped everything, relearned how to play the guitar. I had to just sort of play it every single day, all day, to kind of like make my fingers work again. And just went off on my first tour. And but that phone call was definitely a moment of pure luck. And then when I went on that tour, I met other bands and I was like, oh my God, this is actually a thing. Like, people go on tour and I don't know, I just was really inspired by it and discovered this world where music was a job or like a real thing, and where people took it seriously and you weren't just playing to like empty basements in like, you know, the darkest corners of London. Like, it was really eye-opening. And then I sort of came home from that tour, it wasn't very long, and started writing songs again and looking for bandmates. Was like, okay, I'm going to do this because now I know that it's possible and it exists.
I know for a fact that there'll be a lot of musicians listening to this podcast that are starting to think about, I'm just going to get a job and forget about it. It's just not going anywhere. It's too hard work. Nobody's buying me records. Nobody's streaming stuff. I love doing what I do and I want to do it, but I just can't see it happening. You know, it must be quite inspiring for people to hear that, you know, it can happen and just keep going. And, you know, random thing, you could just get a phone call tomorrow and it could all change again. It must be.
It's so mad how your life can just change with a phone call, or just an email will just arrive and it'll be like, your life will just be upside down.
So was that it then after the call? How did you get the girls together? How did the Big Moon begin?
So I started writing songs and I was writing songs for about 6 months, and I, again, another lucky thing, found our manager. And she was really encouraging and basically became my mentor and was like someone who was like, hey, these songs are good, you should write more. And and I was like shocked. And I definitely needed someone to tell me that, because I think when you're on your own, you can get very like, this is pointless, everything I do is rubbish. So yeah, I was lucky. Like, I met her at a party, basically, again, like through friends of friends. And it was very like, what do you do? What do you do? And she was like, I'm a manager. And I was like, oh, I write songs. And so that came about really nicely. And it's just great that we were friends before we worked together. So yeah, I'd written a bunch of songs, and then I knew I wanted to be in a band, because I'm just like, it's just always what I've done. I never wanted to like be a solo artist, or I just don't really have the confidence to do that. Like I want like a gang of friends around me on stage. I can't ever imagine going on stage on my own. I think, yeah, it's just too overwhelming. And I started looking for bandmates, and for a long time couldn't find anyone. So I was just sort of begging people to learn instruments for me. I didn't even care what instruments at that point. I was just like, just anyone, just someone to be in this rehearsal with me. And we're all like friends of friends. I sent a lot of Facebook messages. It was like that era of just, yeah. So like, I found Fern first. She was a friend of a friend. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we are all just friends of friends. I found Fern first, and we had a few like practices together, and we were like instantly, great, this is going to work. And then we found Soph, and then we were like a 3-piece for a few months, and then we found Celia, and then she was definitely felt like the last piece of the puzzle. We were like, yes, this works. This feels really good.
It's the dynamics of a band have always fascinated me, and they're always different for each individual band that I speak to. There's, in general terms, there's always a quiet one, there's always a mad one, there's always an organized one, there's always a pain in the arse. Which one are you out of the band?
I think I'm probably the pain in the arse.
Oh, yeah, well, you need to be, though, as a driving force behind a band. You've got to be. Someone's got to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we are actually all weirdly similar.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's how we knew it was going to work. Like, even before we played anything together, we were just kind of hanging out, and it just felt like we knew each other already. Like, we're just all on the same wavelength, really.
It's difficult when I speak to bands as well. It's difficult to find the right people, because you can get somebody that's committed, and I'm probably talking about the lower rungs when bands are starting out and they need a new member, but finding the right personality, as well as having talent and be committed to the same cause as what you're passionate about, that's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, and also finding 3 other people who are equally committed to making a band work, because it does take a lot of time, and you do have to spend money on borrowing rehearsal spaces or your instruments and cables, and like, it's quite, I think, it's a bit of a miracle when you find those people who can do all of those things, and they're all up for it just as much as you are.
So did the opportunity that, the bit of luck that came about, you're on tour doing a gig, £100 a night. Oh, wow. What is that a driving force? Was that a catalyst for you to be able to get back into music? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you kind of moved into the art world a little bit and left it by.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, like, just being around other musicians and watching loads of bands, like playing festivals and seeing a lot of live music I found really inspiring and exciting. And I just felt like, yeah, I want to do this.
Well, I can remember first having the Big Moon experience. You're headlining the Albert Hall at Neighbourhood, I think just before.
Oh, nice.
Just before the big global bastard took everything away from us.
Oh, was it in 2020?
I think so. My dates are all over the place, Jules, I'll be honest with you. You play it after the Blinders. I went to see the Blinders, and I've not seen your band before, so me and Kirsty, the missus, hung around and watched your, and we're just in awe of you know, the music that we're hearing from you, this, because when you're new to it, when you're at a festival, particularly festivals, it's a great place to find new bands just to get involved with, isn't it? The whole environment's great. And I originally went to see the Blinders, and then you guys were on after. I thought, I've got to check these out. If they're on after the Blinders, they must be great. And you were. Any kind of like festival experiences that you can tell us a funny story about through the years?
Oh, oh my God, I must have played like hundreds of festivals.
Yes,
How could I
it's too
possibly?
wide.
I mean, I can't.
No, it's too much of a while.
My brain is just like a blur of like strange encounters with celebrities in catering, or like
nice
leaky tents. And
yeah,
I actually got engaged at a festival. That was exciting.
That
was in 2019. My partner came on stage and proposed to me at the end of our show.
Ah, right. Was that a big secret then? Well, obviously it was a secret to you, but I mean, like, do all the girls like had a plan to like?
No, nobody knew. Nobody knew apart from him. We also had a bunch of our friends on stage because he runs something at festivals called the Secret Post Office, where people dressed up as posties and run around delivering letters at festivals.
Oh, nice.
And we were at Green Man in Wales. So we had all of our friends on stage as well, dancing for the last song. So we're already on this massive high. And then at the end, he just grabbed the microphone and started talking. And we were like, what are you doing? Yeah, and he proposed to me. It was completely out of the blue.
And I presume you said yes.
Of course I did.
Yes. Yeah, no, I can imagine that.
I'm like, if you love me that much that you'll talk to like 5,000 people in a tent and tell them that you want to marry me, I'm like, sure, fine, I'll marry you.
Go on. And is he all right now? How's he getting on now? Has he done any more surprises, or is that it now?
No more surprises.
Okay, fair enough. Bless him.
So far.
So festival season's upon us. I love the anticipation of festival seasons and just being around it. My favorite one, personally, just because I'm a bit of Sheffield lad, is Tramlines.
Oh yeah.
Have you got any like memories from like, because I live in Manchester now, have you got any, and the majority of people listening to the podcast are from like Sheffield and Manchester kind of areas, have you got any memories from playing our towns that you could share with the world? Need to remember things, Anna. Sorry, mate.
I remember playing, what's that big festival in Warrington called?
Weekender.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We played that the year before last, and I had a baby. I had a 3-month-old baby at that time, and it was my first time playing shows since having a child, and also since the pandemic. And I remember going there with my bundle, and like everyone backstage was just sort of coming up and cooing over the baby, and like a woman came up to me and was like, oh, I grieve for my children at this age, and like was very like, woe is me. And I went to watch Self-Esteem played like this amazing show, and there were loads of like technical issues with her show, and she was like, if I don't get a John Lewis voucher at the end of this, you're in big trouble.
I love that. I love Self-Esteem, Sheffield lass and all, and I just love what she's doing at the minute. And she's making waves in such like, well, it feels like, for me, I don't know her personally or anything, but it feels like a quite short career she's had. I presume, like many musicians, there's probably 10 years of graft behind it. But I just love what she's doing.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, she's been grafting for a really long time, because she was in Slow Club before she was Self-Esteem, so she's been going along many a year.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I'm with you, she's brilliant.
Yeah,
I went to see her the other day play in London, and it was just fab.
Yeah,
I feel like more bands should have dancing.
yeah, definitely. So loads of gigs coming up, exciting things happening for the band. You've just back in October you had an album out, and I'm always intrigued when an album comes out, a big piece of work like an album comes out, and a few months pass. At what stage as a band do you start thinking, let's move on to the next one now, and like leave that one behind a little bit. I'm always interested in that kind of like dynamic. How do you?
Yeah,
do?
it's weird because I generally after all the writing and recording and promoting an album, I generally have a period of time where I'm like, I'm never writing a song again.
Oh, yeah.
Like the sort of exertion of the whole thing always feels like too much at the time, and then something just very slowly, gradually changes over like a year. And I'm just at that point now after releasing our last album where I just sort of the feeling just starts to creep back in, and I feel like, maybe I want to write a song right now. And it always comes back, and it always surprises me when it does, because I'm literally like, I hate music after I go through the whole experience, and then I'm like, actually, I love music.
We have quite a few comedians on the podcast as well, and the dynamics between musicians and comedians is quite similar, because they go on the road, they do a special, they record it. Once that material's out there, it's a bit different with comedians, because once their special's out on telly, they can't really use that material again. So it's not like musicians where you can play the hits again on, amongst the new.
Oh God, yeah.
But absolutely cut it and never be able to use it again. So and I speak to many people that feel like, I'm just not funny anymore. I can't do this anymore. And then they have to go through this period of time where they have to, go back to the roots again at some point and just start thinking, why am I funny? What is funny? What's going on?
Oh man, it's so difficult. Like sometimes, because it's deeply kind of tied up with your whole personality. I can imagine it's the same for comedians, and you need to have like experiences to be able to have something to process through music or comedy. You need to see things or do things. And the nature of touring sometimes is that you're living this quite strange routine. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to write a load of songs about being on tour constantly.
Like COVID, like nobody had out to do. We all had to stay in the house, it must like hinder some, like, in a, what am I trying to say? Like you're right, aren't you? When you're out and about in the world, your head ticks along better, doesn't it? There's more things going on. You're thinking of different things. You're more inspired by things. But when you're stuck in a certain place, or you're on tour where you're just on a bus and a venue and something to eat,
and sometimes in those like repetitive situations, like being on tour, or even like lockdown was like, when you're doing the same thing every day, it's really hard to even remember anything. It's hard to make memories because you're just like doing the same things all the time. Like you definitely, like I definitely need a period of not writing and just sort of listening, I guess. And I kind of write things down in my little notepad if someone says something, or if there's a little turn of phrase that feels like, oh yeah, that is a good way of putting that thing. Then I'll just sort of nick it and look at it later.
Well, I really enjoyed the new single. 2 Lines is out now as well for people to enjoy.
Oh, thank you.
I've had that on loop this morning, just enjoying that. What I love about the latest single is just the honesty of it. It's such a good beat throughout it. And I was speaking to James Walsh from Star Sailor, and I love Good Souls, his song, and it was a similar kind of thing. It's quite a simple beat, but it drives the song along all through it. I find that dynamic quite interesting, to have something quite, and I don't mean simple in derogatory terms, I mean it, and I think it's special. I think it's a magical thing to be able to do and perform and make happen.
I really I remember when I was writing this album, I was really trying to be as simple as I could, because like when I used to write songs, like our first album, the songs are all quite complex, and there's loads of different chords, and sometimes like time changes and just all this mad stuff, which was fun and what I wanted to do at the time, and like it's good and I love it. But this time I was really like, I wanted to get into the lyrics, and I wanted to, like, I felt like to let that happen, I needed to have just the purest, simplest chords and beats. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to take away from the emotions of the songs by adding a load of bells and whistles. I wanted it to feel constant and driving, and yeah.
Well, you've nailed that one, mate. Just listening to it this morning, just really enjoying it. And we'll put a link to all your music and, you know, the gigs and everything that you've got coming up, because the festivals start on the 11th of May at Great Escape. Excuse me. Then you've got Leicester, Leeds, Neighbourhood Festival again, London, the big one. And then you're off out into Europe. That must be nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice to go to Europe.
I have been seeing a few people like Slow Readers Club mentioned on their socials that some of the it's difficult for bands in Europe at the minute. Some particularly with like the visas and that kind of stuff post Brexit, where they
everything's so complicated now.
You
have to sit at the airport for like an hour. Sorry,
taking merch off bands so they can't sell it. You know, the commercial side of things is that.
Oh my god, yeah. You have to declare everything.
Madness.
Which is like kind of imagine doing a stock take of like all of your merch and then all of your equipment, every single guitar pedal, every single cable, every single pick is just sort of, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, to be honest.
Fair enough. Well, good luck with it all anyway. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there. We'll fill out all the forms. We'll get there. We'll eat some nice cheese. It'll be fine. I'm looking forward to it.
Good in you. Do you have, because I know you're busy and you need to get off at the minute, but do you have a message for the Big Moon fans out there that be listening to this, that are considering coming to catch you at your headline gigs in particular, that haven't pressed the button yet on the to buy a ticket?
Oh, hello, Big Moon fans. I love you. Come to our shows. There's going to be cool staging that I drew on a napkin. It's going to be loud.
Yeah.
It's going to be really loud.
Yeah. I'm going to put all the links to all the gigs on the description of this podcast. Jules, mate, really appreciate you joining this morning for a chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Is there anything else that you want to share with the world that we might not have covered today at all?
No, not really. No, I think we'd talked about everything.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Well, I really appreciate your time, mate. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and just have a great time with these gigs coming up, mate. And say hello to the girls for us, and our gym.
Will do.
We'll be supporting you all the way. Thanks again for your time.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Thanks, mate. Have a nice day.